Okay. Looks like I got to start planning that 20 subscriber special. It was bouncing between 19 and 20 for a couple days, so I wasn't sure, but it's been holding steady for a little while now. If it drops, it's not my fault. Obviously, I take no responsibility. But but yeah, we got a plan. I mean, for my 10 subscriber special, I went through a random old wallet, so we have to figure out something that's going to top that in terms of spectacle for 20. At least double the spectacle. And I don't want to hype it up too much, especially considering I have literally no ideas. So I will just say that it is going to be the most amazing thing you've ever seen and positively change all of our lives in a fundamental way forever. In the meantime, let's talk about Weezer. I love Weezer. I know that a lot of people have jumped ship at this point because they're so wildly inconsistent. But to me, that's part of the fun. You get a new Weezer album, you never know if it's going to be one of their best albums they've ever made or one of the worst albums you've ever heard by anyone, you know? And I find that intriguing, let's say. I feel the same way about like the Beach Boys, for example, or I recently did Elton John. I like it when a career has like peaks and valleys, like extreme highs and extreme lows. It just makes things more fascinating, I think. And no album typifies that more than the Black Album, where I find half of it very enjoyable. Like I think Piece of Cake and High as a Kite, especially, are like really well written, emotionally potent songs. And you've got some fun pop stuff like Living in LA and California Snow, which are cheesy, but they're like fun cheesy. And then you got these weird genre pastiches like Byzantine and Zombie Bastards, and then you've got Can't Knock the Hustle, which is kind of like a klezmer song about Uber drivers. So I don't know. I don't know. It's very mixed. The highs are very high, the lows are very low. But I think I'm generally more positive on it than a lot of fans. Put Green up in B. I think if I'd been a fan when Green came out, I would have been kind of disappointed, especially considering there was that big gap between Pinkerton and Green. I think it was like 5 years. And then they returned with something that's a lot more surface level. You could even say shallow. But I think there's a lot of fun stuff on it. I think Oh Girlfriend is a really good deep cut. I like Crab. I know nobody else likes Crab, but I like Crab. And Keep Fishing. It's a pretty good single, but it has that great video with the Muppets. And once you get that Muppet endorsement, it takes a lot for me to dislike you at that point. Like you have to, and there, in the intervening years since, there's been no blood, but bad blood between them and the Muppets. No conflicts. Everything's still super cool. So for me, that goes a long way. Blue, I'm gonna put up an S. There was a time where I was an annoying person. I was like, "Oh, Blue, it's a little overrated." I don't know. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's fantastic. I mean, every track on here is just wonderful. It's probably their most consistent album. From the opener, My Name is Jonas, which has consistently been in like my top 10 Weezer tracks, to grander stuff like The World Has Turned and Left Me Here and Only in Dreams. And then Say It Ain't So, which I think is an interesting song. I don't really, I'm happy that it happened, but I've never really understood why it was like a big hit. And it's one of the ones that casual fans really know that they have to play at all their shows. Like, to me, it seems more like a beloved, deep cut that like fans would be hoping for, because it's kind of slow and long and emotionally fraught and all of that. But I guess it was like post Nirvana, like mid '90s, and people were ready to be depressed again. I don't know, but it's a good song. All of the Seasons EPs, I'm gonna put in C. They're all the same. They all have like one or two really good songs, and then a couple of songs that are just completely baffling, like why would you do that? And then a couple songs that are like fine. I might put Red. I forget Summer. I think this was Summer. I might put that one in D, but I'm gonna leave it in C for now. I did think that was probably the weakest one. I am going to put Winter, though, up in B. I thought Winter was a definite improvement over the other three. It's a little more depressing, it's a little darker than the other three, and we all know that Rivers is at his best when he's very, very upset. So I enjoyed that one a bit more. Everything Will Be All Right in the End, I'm going to put an A. This was kind of their comeback record. Um, and it worked really well in that regard. I wasn't a huge fan of the first single, Back to the Shack. It was like a little too meta for me, with them getting like really literal with it. But then there are songs later on the album that did that better for me, like Eulogy of a Rock Band and I've Had It Up to Here. And then there were like some cool collaborations on it, like him teaming up with Bethany from Best Coast to do that nice duet, Go Away. I mean, that song has like really, really basic lyrics, but they sell it with their vocal chemistry. It's cool. And then he teamed up with Patrick Stickles from Titus Andronicus to write Foolish Father, which is maybe the most kind of epic Weezer song they've ever done, with that chanting and the children's chorus and the big finish and all of this. It's great. It's great. Red Album, I'm like teetering between A and B. I'm going to put it in A, with the caveat that I listened to it in a very specific way, and it's kind of cheating. I cannot stand the like the three songs on there the other guys in the band wrote, the non-Rivers guys. But I do think that the bonus tracks on here are really good, like King and Spider and Pig and Miss Sweeney. So what I always do is I always take off those three songs that the other guys wrote, and I put on the bonus tracks. And at that point, it's like an A level album. But even without that, I mean, it's got a lot of stuff to recommend it. It's got The Greatest Man Who Ever Lived, which is like one of my absolute favorite Weezer songs. It like changes genres every like 30 seconds. It's so much fun. And then you've got The Angel and the One, which I think is one of their most underrated songs. Yeah, it's much more emotional than anything they put out since like Maladroit. It's just a really strong record. It's very eclectic to the point of absurdity, but I think that actually gives the record a weird cohesion. Like it's so insane that almost kind of unifies it, and it's just a fun record to revisit. Maladroit also going to go in A. I think this was like the last vestige of Rivers doing more personal songwriting for a while at least. Where he'd put out Pinkerton and the fans hadn't reacted very well at the time, and then he put out Green, and a lot of the fans were like, yeah, I don't know about this either, and I think he was like he didn't quite know what to do, so it's kind of like a half measure. It's kind of like one step back into that more emotional kind of songwriting style. And it creates, I think it's a nice balance. I think it's like nothing else in their discography, and it's a really cool record. And I especially really like that song Slave. Because, I mean, it is a very dark and sad song, but it is also just kind of like hook after hook after hook. Like every part of that song is really catchy. I know Rivers really likes that one too. Hurley, gonna put in C. A lot of fans think this one is a little underrated, and I'm inclined to agree. That being said, I don't think it's that underrated. Like it's got some weird stuff on it, like that "Where's My Sex" song where he's looking for his socks, can't find his socks. It's got some good stuff on it. It's got like Memories and Train Wrecks and Hold On. But overall, it's just very, very inconsistent. And they kind of shot themselves in the foot. Like, if you want people to take this record seriously, don't call it Hurley. Don't put Hurley on the cover. Like, don't blame people when they think it's a joke if you treat it like a joke. And that's doubly true of Gratitude. Except I think in this case, they intended for it to be a joke, and it was kind of like a big troll. There is one really good song on here, which is the first single. Is If You're Wondering If I Want You To, I Want You To. That song's really fun. And I do like Can't Stop Partying, but I only like it on Alone Volume 2, where Rivers is playing it acoustically, and it's really sad, and it sounds like if he continues partying, it's all gonna come crashing down. I love that. But the version on here with Lil Wayne and stuff, like I get that it's satire, but it's a little too straight faced. It's they sell it a little too well, I think. And there isn't much else on there I ever return to be honest. White, I absolutely love. I can remember what a huge relief this album was when it came out, and for a long time, I actually liked this more than Blue. Um, I've calmed down on it a little bit, but I still think it's wonderful. I think it's one of their most consistent albums. I love California Kids Into Wind in Our Sails opening it. It's such an exciting way to kick off the record. And then I love LA Girls. I love that. I love the bridge on that song. I think it's one of the most beautiful moments in any Weezer song. I love that kind of twin closers with Jacked Up and then Endless Bummer, which is kind of this campfire sing along kind of deal. And then there are a couple songs on there that don't really fit the aesthetic, like Do You Want to Get High and Thank God for Girls. But I really like those songs too. I think they're really odd and fun. So yeah, I love pretty much everything on White. I think it's definitely one of their strongest records and one of their top three. Absolutely. Being Weezer, I'm going between like I guess I'll put it in C. It's good enough for C. Like it has some good songs on it. It has Hero at the beginning of the end. It has Precious Metal Girl, which is nice. But it's also got some of the most embarrassing kind of weird songs that they've ever written, like weird in an off-putting way, where it's just like, what were you thinking? And it's also, once again, they didn't totally dive into the idea of the record. They were going to do this big epic metal album. There are a couple of songs that have that flavor, but it's definitely not consistent. And I wish it was, because that would have been something kind of different and unique in their discography. But for what it is, it's fine. Teal, I'm going to put Teal in D, just because, I mean, Teal is fine to listen to, but it really has no reason to exist. It's like they recorded this cover of Africa by Toto as a joke because there was, this campaign, this like Twitter campaign to get them to cover it. And at first, they covered another Toto song. I think they covered like Rosanna, which was really funny. But then they were like, okay, we'll cover Africa. And they did, and it inexplicably became like their biggest hit in years and years. And so then they put out this whole album in that style, and they cover good songs for the most part, but they don't really bring much to them. There are a couple of exceptions. I like their version of Happy Together. That's fun. And I do have like a perverse fascination with their cover of No Scrubs. But yeah, overall, it's okay, but it's kind of uninspiring, and I kind of don't know why it exists. Okay Human, I'm gonna put OK Human up an S for me personally. I know that some people, might think that's a little odd, but this album was just perfectly timed, coming out when it did at that really dark time for everyone during COVID and all of that, and hearing Rivers kind of respond to that situation about like, being trapped in his house and learning to really appreciate his family at a time like that and appreciate music and the healing power of music and playing the piano and audiobooks. It was just a really sweet record that came out at just the right time, and it has some of that darkness that's on a lot of my favorite material by Rivers. But he also talks a lot more honestly about his daily life and about his family. Like he writes so many songs about unrequited love and like past girlfriends and stuff that it's hard to remember that he's been like married for like a long time. And this is like maybe the only record in their discography where he really talks about his domestic life and what that's like, his day to day life with his wife. And I find that really interesting and really heartfelt. There's like this great minute long song about mirror image, which is about just what his wife means to him and whatnot, and him worrying about messing it up and stuff. And it's just, I think it's really powerful. I don't know. I really enjoy this record, and I enjoy the kind of stringy, kind of baroque kind of feel to it. I think it's just wonderful. Once again, I wish they hadn't saddled it with like this joke album title, but what can you do? Pinkerton is my favorite Weezer record. I mean, I know that's not an uncommon opinion. Fans are either usually like Team Blue or Team Pinkerton, and I've always preferred Pinkerton by a bit. It's just it's such a raw and emotional record, such an honest record. I mean, to the point where there are plenty of times on the album where Rivers doesn't characterize himself as an especially likable person. He shows that he's a very flawed person who has some thoughts that most people would just keep to themselves and stuff. But it's such an honest reflection of where his mind was at this time and what he was going through. And there are still moments on it that are really catchy, like The Good Life and El Scorcho, and those are wonderful. But it also has stuff like around this across the sea, where it's like kind of, you're kind of cringing as you're listening to it, where it's like, oh god, you know it's kind of hard to listen to, but it's kind of hard to look away too. And it's hard for me to imagine that they're ever going to have a song as emotionally direct as Butterfly ever again. um, I kind of doubt that. I will say this album was originally going to be like a sci-fi concept album called Songs from the Black Hole, and I think if they had finished that, I would have loved it. Based on the material I've heard from it, some of it is on this album, some of it is available in like demos on those Alone records, and some of it was on the deluxe edition of the record, and some of it's just never really been recovered. But I think it would have been fantastic. And there is a song on here that got cut, called Long Time Sunshine, which was on the deluxe edition, which might be my single favorite Weezer song. It just builds to this gorgeous outro where there are all these vocal parts overlapping each other, and I think it goes a lot to explaining his mindset at the time and kind of wrapping up a lot of the themes on the record. So yeah, I mean, I recommend seeking that one out if you haven't heard it. Death to False Metal. This isn't even really an album. It's more of a compilation type of deal. I mean, I'll put it in D. It's not bad. Um, it's got a couple okay songs. Their cover of "Unbreak My Heart" is pretty funny, and I do like "Trampoline." That song they wrote with their fans, turning up the radio, is okay. But overall, it's just it's what it sounds like. It's a bunch of reject songs, and there's nothing on there that's particularly wonderful to me. Um, we only have one E on here, and that's Pacific Daydream. I find Pacific Daydream pretty much unlistenable because of the way it's produced. And there are some okay songs on there, like Feels Like Summer and Mexican Fender. Like those are fine songs at their core, but it's just they don't sound agreeable to me like at all the way it's produced. And this came right after White, and it was such a crushing disappointment after White. I was like, what are you guys doing? Because it not only followed White, it followed Everything Will Be All Right in the End. So I was like, oh, finally this band is back. They figured it out, and then they do this, which was just this colossal miscalculation. And since then, I've just realized, okay, it's always going to be up and down. You never know what you're going to get. So don't feel secure in anything. But that also means the reverse, that they can follow up an awful album with a great album. And so, now I've just embraced that, and that's part of the excitement for me. But this is still an album I almost never return to. I'm not a fan. And we'll end with Make Believe, which I think I'm gonna put in C, low C. I mean, I think that it has some good material on it. It has some good deep cuts on it. It has some nice emotional stuff. I can't stand the way it sounds. I can't stand the way that Rick Rubin produced it. He just sucked all the life out of the songs, and maybe it's not his fault. Maybe it was a band decision that they wanted it to sound that way. It kind of washed out and more polished, more kind of radio friendly. But it's a shame because I think if the songs had been recorded in a more direct way, like the way that Rick Ocasek used to produce their albums, it could have been really good. But as is, just no, it's not my jam. So there we go. I mean, that's all the records, and I mean we can reorganize to put them in order a bit. I mean, Pinkerton is my favorite, then Blue, then White, then OK Human. That's all correct. We can leave this the same too, except I'm going to put Maladroit ahead of Red, but then other than that, that's fine. Do Green, we'll do Winter. Yeah, we'll do Black next. I'm fine with that. Then maybe Hurley. You know what? No, I'm going to put Hurley ahead of Black. We'll do Hurley, we'll do Black, we'll do Make Believe. You know what? You know what? You know what? No. No, I'm going to put Van Weezer ahead of Make Believe. I'm sorry. Um, And then we got the three EPs, and those are basically in interchangeable order. I'm going to put this one last, maybe like this. No, yeah, yeah, no, that's what I meant. My brain is melting. It's so hot. I don't have air conditioning. Help. And then we get into these. I would actually put Keel first, and then probably Death to False. No, I'd put Ratitude, then Death to False Metal, and then last Pacific Daydream. Okay, so that's the list. That's Weezer planning the 20 subscriber spectacular event. And if any of you have any suggestions, any ideas, let me know. I know that I've gotten requests to go through another wallet, and I think I only have that one. I have that one in my current one, which is very very light on cards. I've tried to be economical, so we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. It'll be great. You'll be impressed. You'll see. So until then, thanks for watching, and farewell.